What's up, Airsofters? My name is Lane, and welcome back to the BB Warrior Rambles, a new series here on the channel where we're taking a look at some of the best moments from the BB Warrior live streams. That's the questions, the hot takes, everything coming from you all, and compiling it all into one video. Timestamps are coming up in just a moment, but I hope that you enjoy this new series. What is the future of Airsoft? I think the future of Airsoft is very promising because there's people trying new things. And I think that's really what it comes down to for Airsoft to really grow as a hobby. Because for a while, I feel like we kind of plateaued. There was no real innovation in either the Airsoft guns, in the games themselves. And because of that, things kind of got stagnant. And while there were a couple of, minor upgrades that were made, or there were people introducing new models of Airsoft guns that we never saw before, at the end of the day, the needle really wasn't moving. But now we're seeing a lot of advancements with 3D printing in Airsoft. We're seeing people do more custom jobs. I mean, Amped Airsoft showed a gun yesterday on their live stream that was completely 3D printed, and it was HPA. So I think that is definitely seeing some advancement forward. But I think at the same time, or at least I hope so, people are not shying away from new designs, and they're not afraid to buy a semi-proprietary or a completely proprietary Airsoft gun. G&G is coming out with their new gearbox system, which I have high hopes for. I hope it does well, even if I don't like it, because I want to see other people do that. I don't want to see people, just put like one specific proprietary part in there, call it a day, when it's basically a V2 gearbox. I want to see that needle moved. I want to see people try new things. If we can get away from the standard V2 and V3 gearbox design, I think that would really push Airsoft forward because there are limitations with those systems. They're old, and by now the hobby has changed so much, there just has to be a better way. So I'm really excited to see where Airsoft goes in the future, and I think at the same time we're starting to see more games that are really taking things, they're thinking outside of the box. Primarily Milsim West. Now Milsim West has been around for 10 years, but if you think about the way that Milsim West changed Airsoft, what it brought to the game, I think that, that was a huge push for advancement in the hobby. It got people more interested in like actual Milsim rather than large scale Lion Claw style games. So I think that they really just transformed the way that we play Airsoft. Now, if we can only transform the guns as well, I think that'll be huge for the future of Airsoft. The other thing I want to see more platforms that have self-contained or natively built for HPA systems. I don't want to throw them in a gearbox shell and mess with the alignment. I just want to put it in there or have it already in there from the factory and have things good to go. Like the Wolverine MTW, for example. While it hasn't been my favorite Airsoft gun, it's given me some problems over the years, I love the concept of it. The main thing that you're going to want to consider when you're buying a gas blow bag is going to be the consistency and having spare parts on hand. I think that that's one of the things that gas blowbacks are starting to get much better at. When I started playing Airsoft, gas blowbacks just weren't great in the cold. There are ways to kind of modernize them now to make them really good. Explosive Enterprises has a great video on winterizing your gas blowback guns. I think it really comes down to, again, making sure that you live somewhere where the temperature doesn't fluctuate too much. Like for me, in the Northeast, right now, it's like 30 degrees out. Even with CO2 mags, I just don't feel comfortable bringing a gas gun out, so I'd rather go with my AEGs or anything else. But during the summer, I love my GHK. I admit that it's not quite as good as maybe my HPA guns or my AEGs, but it's more fun. And at the end of the day, that's really what Airsoft's about to me. Airsoft's not about winning to me. It's about having fun and just, the noise and the clack, clack, clack of the bolt going back and that little bit of recoil, I think are super cool. But gas blowbacks are definitely a rabbit hole that you can easily fall down in Airsoft. But the nice thing is, if you're interested in GHK or Tokyo Marui, there are tons of people out there who are incredibly knowledgeable, and there's great guides on YouTube. I think that either of those platforms are going to be a great one. I would not cheap out on a WeTech, a King Arms, anything like that, because they just need a ton of parts to make them run really efficiently. But at least, for all four of the brands that we talked about, there are readily available parts because things are going to break. Airsoft miniguns are dumb. Have I ever used a minigun on the field before? I think that miniguns are kind of a meme in Airsoft. Sure, they look cool. They're great for a thumbnail on YouTube to get clickbait. But if you think about it, yes, you have a lot of rate of fire, but you're not aiming the thing. Like you're kind of passively holding it down at your hip. Again, while they look cool, they're HPA, so they perform somewhat well from my understanding. I've just never had the desire to buy it. Now, I do have a good friend who has one, and he really seems to enjoy it, but it's just never been my thing. Because I'm kind of a scrawnier built guy, I always tend to go for lighter things before I bought my LMG, but even then I bought the lightest model that I could. It's just never been a thing that has really intrigued me. I've never seen one and be like, whoa, I need this. I'm always like, huh, that's kind of neat. Seems a little gimmicky in my opinion, and then we go away from it.
Milsim versus Speedsoft in kit preference.
Castle Airsoft, who also has a fantastic YouTube channel, check him out, said that casual wear all the way. And I used to be like that. I used to be like, oh, I need to wear jeans on the airsoft field. And then I started I started wearing them on like 90-degree days. And God, it was just miserable. My favorite is like these $15 pants I found from Walmart by Wrangler of all people. And they're super stretchy, they're kind of moisture wicking, and they have cargo pockets. And honestly, I like them because I can wear them in the gas station when I like go to get my snacks and water ahead of the day and not look like a complete goober. And then, you know, put on like a camo top, put on my chest rig, and still look somewhat put together. Because admittedly, the part of airsoft that's important is looking cool. Casual wear is Speedsoft, that's funny. You know, I think that's, you know, the Milsim versus Speedsoft debate. We've talked about it a couple of times here on the channel. I just don't think that it's ever going to go away. And I think that like Milsim, as most people think it is not real. Like Milsim West is Milsim. It gives you that experience of being in the military. It kind of has that realism to it. But if you're going to a big game, like somebody just brought up AMS, and if I'm going, unfortunately I won't be, I think that AMS is just really a big open play when you get down to it. Well, yes, it has a little bit more complex rules. It has some class systems. You know, it's a big open play at the end of the day. It's not anything really different. I think the cool thing about those events is where you're playing them. But at the end of the day, I think that like Milsim versus Speedsoft is kind of silly. And if we want to get like really down into the dirt about it, I think that there are clear examples of military loadouts and impressions, where they're wearing just like everyday stuff and then they have a plate carrier on under it. Interesting take. I like a Speedsofter on my team with a standard pickup game rather than a swell Milsim guy. You know, that's the other thing is that like, I guess some people consider them play styles. I used to for a while, and like, yeah, I have some stuff on my kit for my impression, for example, that really slow me down versus some Milsim, or not Milsim, some Speedsoft guy who has 2 mags taped to his chest and an HPA M4 that's 6 inches long. I think really what it comes down to is you can be one of those guys who dresses in kit and is like really high speed kit, JPC, Ops Core, Mark 18, and still plays super hard. At the same time, I've seen people play airsoft in what I'm wearing right now and be the guy sitting at the back of the field taking pot shots that they'll never hit. I don't really think that what you're wearing matters. I think that like the kit that you have can show kind of how dedicated you are to airsoft and how willing you are to push up. But at the end of the day, what you're wearing doesn't determine how you're playing for the most part. Like obviously, you're gonna need a different loadout if you have a light machine gun versus a submachine gun, for example, or a sniper rifle. But I think at the end of the day, kind of judging people based off of what you wear is kind of silly in airsoft.
My home bar.
What is my personal favorite whiskey? And can we have a whiskey review stream coming up? You know, why don't we actually show you guys the bar? Kind of show you what's up there. Before we go, because I think this would be fun. So right now the bar is a mess. I have a bunch of accessories on here from the video that we just filmed, but let me see if I can get that in focus. So by far, my favorite thing in this bar is the Maker's Mark cast strength. I love this stuff. Because it's cast strength, because it doesn't have any water in it, it just hits different. You get the taste right on your tongue. Like it's not, I can't think of even the right word for it. Just all those flavor notes show up immediately. Another one that I just recently got that I'm really happy with is Redwood Empire, Lost Monarch here. And one in here that I have not opened is this Glenmorangie 15 year. I'm waiting to open this with a friend. But otherwise, real big fan of tequila. I've got 2 bottles of Espolón here. This is their aged in whiskey barrel one, which I think is okay. But yeah, that is just a quick look at the home bar and the mess that it is after getting a bunch of alcohol-themed gifts for Christmas and kind of staging videos right here as well. But yeah, that is my home bar. It's definitely kind of humble right now, but I am continuing to collect things.
Are tracer units worth it?
I would say that tracer units are a very valuable thing to have on the airsoft field if you're going to a night game. I think that you don't always have to use it, but if you're going to a game that allows you to pack your own BBs, does not hurt to have. I think that something that we need to see is more heavyweight tracers. That's something that I really want out of airsoft. But overall, I think that they are just a wonderful thing to have. Personally, I have the Acetec AT1000. It's a little bit older model, it's kind of chunky, but I like that it looks that way. But in recent years, we've gotten tracer units that are so small that you can put them on handguns. You know, they're only a couple inches big. I think that they are definitely, for something that doesn't take up a lot of space, something that can be easily removed, you know, some of them are even on quick detach mounts nowadays. I think they really are just the way to go, and I would highly recommend them to all players. They're really fun indoor. It's just one of those things that kind of makes me giggle when I use it in airsoft, because I'm like, that's cool. I love putting it on my GHK as well to have the recoil and the tracer effect. I think that it is just fantastic, and I love to have them on there.
Who makes the best airsoft AK replica?
Frog in the Waves wants to know what I think is the best brand for AKs. And I think in the world of airsoft, assuming we're talking about AEGs here, there's really only a couple of really good options out there. We have Cyma, which is the very budget friendly. We have LCT, which is kind of the middle ground, where it's a little bit more expensive, but it has great internals. And we have E&L, which is a little bit more expensive. Again, okay externals, okay internals. I think the LCT is a better value overall. And after owning all three, I can honestly say Cyma is the best, hands down. I think that Cymas just work out of the box. The main issue they have is sometimes they come a little hot. Like the FPS will be a little too high to go to an indoor field especially, but sometimes they'll be shooting like 410 and that'll be an issue. LCTs have the best externals by far. I think that they're good guns, but every time that I've seen somebody try to customize them, it creates issues. Just something goes wrong. I don't want to say that they're proprietary. They might just be slightly out of spec compared to other airsoft guns. And the spec and tolerances in airsoft is a whole nother discussion that we could talk about. But it's just I think that Cyma is just the best. It takes internal parts the best. It has pretty good externals for the money. And if you want an AK, you're probably upgrading the handguard. You're probably getting fake Zenetco stuff anyways. So I just think that that is overall the best option out of the three. Now, like my GHK AK has LCT externals, which I think are pretty good. You know, that's one of my favorite things about the GHK. But if it had Cyma externals, would I notice? Not really, not when I'm playing airsoft. So if you're gonna replace your external parts or you wanna upgrade it, I really just think that Cyma is the way to go.
How a recession could impact airsoft.
We have another question about the future of airsoft. How do I think airsoft will be affected by the threats of a recession? Now, I am no economist, but I think that when there are recessions, people have less discretionary spending and they're not spending as much on hobbies. I think that definitely could have an impact on people and the amount of money that they have to go to an airsoft field. But I think at the same time, if you think about the quality that we have now for $200 compared to the quality of airsoft gun we had back, 5-10 years ago, airsoft is just such a better value nowadays. And I think that you can get a great gun for a really affordable price, which can help get people into the hobby. I think the other thing that we have to consider about airsoft is that while there's people who play this game for a very long time, I've been playing for 13, 14 years now, airsoft is a very cyclical thing. People only play for a couple of years and then get burnt out. And there are certain brands that revolve around this thought process. If you look at the companies that only make cheap guns, it's going to be somebody's first gun. They're gonna have it for a year or two, something else, they're gonna find a new hobby, they're just not gonna be happy with airsoft, and they're gonna get out. So I think that we're gonna constantly see a stream of new players, and while there are advancements in airsoft guns that are really expensive, think the VFC MG4 by Elite Force, it's over $1,000, a lot of HPA guns that are custom built nowadays are several $100s. I think there's still always going to be that market for affordable airsoft guns. So I think it's going to continually bring people into the hobby, even if economic times get a little tougher.
The problem with Airsoft M14 replicas.
I think the interesting thing about M14s in Airsoft, if you're unfamiliar, they don't use a traditional gearbox. It's not a V2 and it's not a V3. And on the couple of chances that I have had to use M14s, primarily friends, the G&G M14 is fantastic, for example. I've just never been willing to spend the money to get into one because what I really want is, if anybody remembers All Gillied Up from the original Modern Warfare, like COD 4, the M14 from that whole sniper sequence where you're just sneaking through the trees, through the brush, and nobody can hear your shots, that's what I want out of an M14. In a way, it's kind of a dream airsoft gun, but the only way to achieve that is going to be with HPA and like a foam-filled can. And that's just a lot of money and an investment that I can't get into. And as well, I'm also not sure how M14 magazines are these days. I feel like I'm really spoiled by having the EPM and the EPM1 and making sure that I have mid caps that can really, have the springs that can support heavy BBs like a .32, .36 that I'd want for a DMR like that. I just don't know if it's out there. It's one of those things I would love to run someday. If money wasn't a question, I would have it, but to build my dream HPA M14, not always going to take a lot of tech work. I've heard they're very finicky to work with, but also, it's just going to be, it's out of the question for right now, but maybe someday we'll get into it.
Are cheap red dots just as good?
When you're choosing a red dot, there's a lot of what I call like airsoft red dots, which you may think are perfect for our hobby, but in reality, there are cheap Chinese things that aren't great. I would definitely recommend, if you have the budget, if you're going to be playing airsoft for a while, invest in some sort of optic that is going to be rated for real steel firearms. Now, I understand if you don't live in the US, these might be a little bit harder to get, but getting like an entry-level red dot from like Primary Arms, for example, I think is a great brand. From Vortex, from SIG, maybe a used aim point, whatever it may be. I think that those are much better for airsoft overall because they are I think that because they can handle the recoil of a real firearm to get back on track, I think they're going to be much better for airsoft than some cheap Chinese thing that's probably going to break the moment that you drop it. But yeah, I think that really like under $80, they're going to be very similar. There's going to be a lot of rebrands. I think Hollow Sun is also one of those brands that I forgot to mention, which are good for their price point. If they can handle the abuse of a real firearm, they're going to handle an airsoft gun. They're going to handle your gas blowback, whatever it may be. And again, there is a lot of rebranding in optics as well. So while it may look like there's a ton of choices, they may only be made by like 3 or 4 people. So you never know. That's going to do it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to join in on these live streams if you want your questions answered to not only be featured in the live stream, but in a future video like this one. And if you're looking to get more from the BB Warrior, make sure to check out becoming a channel member. This gives you some great perks like being able to use our exclusive BB Warrior emotes, being able to watch the live streams after they're over, and as well, you can also view videos early. So if you want to learn more about that and help support the channel, that is all down below in the description. But my name is Lane, and I'll catch you all next time.